Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Metro Board activities for June 9th, 2022. Before we begin, I'll ask our Chief Safety Officer, Teresa Impastato, to provide us with a brief safety contact.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today, Metro Rail serves 91 stations and has 117 miles of track. Metrobus serves the nation's capital 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with more than 1,500 buses. Metro Access provides about 2.3 million trips per year. Ensuring the safety of our customers across all modes of transit, especially our younger ones, is our #1 priority. Safety tips for using the Metro system with children include look, listen, and be alert for yourself and children at all times. Stay together, but have a plan in case you become separated. Show children how to contact a station manager or other Metro employee if they are lost or need help. When waiting for a bus or train, keep children with you and stand away from the curb or platform edge. Take small children by the hand at all times, especially when boarding or exiting a bus, train, or escalator. When on an escalator, never allow a child to sit on the steps or touch the side panels. Also, make sure they do not have loose clothing or untied shoes on the escalators. If you're using a stroller, remove your child from the stroller, fold it, secure it, and if possible, stow the stroller out of the way when riding. Never use a stroller on an escalator. Additional information about riding the Metro system with children can be found at WMATA.com. This concludes our safety contact.
Thank you, Ms. Impastato. Good morning again, and welcome to today's Safety and Operations Committee. Our first order of business is to approve the agenda. If there are no objections, we'll consider the agenda approved as presented. Are there any objections by members of the committee? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Now to approval of the minutes of our May 12th meeting. Are there any objections to the minutes as presented? Hearing none, we'll consider the minutes approved. We have two information updates before the committee this morning. The first is an update on Silver Line Phase 2 activities leading to project acceptance and the start of passenger service. The second is an update on safety performance and some key safety initiatives in Metro Rail, Metro Bus, and Metro Access operations. I'll turn the floor over to Mr. Off and Ms. Bowersox to begin the presentation on the Silver Line Phase 2.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Andy Off here, joined by my colleague, Ms. Lynn Bowersox. And Lynn will be starting off here, and then I will pick up about halfway through the slideshow. Lynn.
Thank you, Mr. Off, Mr. Chairman, committee. I'm very pleased to support Mr. Off as we advance the Silver Line project to completion and get it in service for our customers, which is our mission today, to update the board on our operational readiness preparations and the key activities that will follow as we move towards acceptance of the line. Since the committee was last briefed, we've had productive working sessions with the Airports Authority on these key areas noted in the slide as Package A and Package B. We expect to close out Package A and B safety certifications and the ATC safety case this week. And I'm very pleased to report that the temporary certificate of occupancy for the warehouse and S&I buildings in the yard was issued on Monday. With that, I'll turn it back over to Andy to talk about our path forward.
No, thank you very much, Lynn. As Lynn noted, we've been working collaboratively and very well with the Airports Authority. Because of that significant process and progress, we're excited to announce that we believe we're in a position where we'll be able to declare operational readiness within the next several weeks. So what we'd like to do, given that, is to start focusing a little bit more on all the key activities that are required to put the system into operation between operational readiness and the start of passenger service. Some of these we have talked about in the past. We will work through the training and familiarization activities associated with the main line and the yard. We'll be deploying our mobile command. Our mobile command is a command and control cell that will be located near the Dulles Phase 2 right-of-way, and their mission will be to manage the literally hundreds of employees and contractors that will need to access the Phase 2 property in order to complete punch lists and to begin our preventive maintenance activities. We'll also be coordinating with the local jurisdictions to conduct our emergency drills. We'll also be going through a process where we're changing out all the locks, and it sounds, somewhat parochial, but, it's a massive undertaking, given the magnitude of the infrastructure. Also, very importantly, we'll be deploying our frontline workforce and supervisors to these new work locations. There are some operational readiness tests that we are deferring post-ORD that we'll also need to complete. And as I noted, we'll be working on punch list items. Just one note, I just wanted to remind the committee on the heat tape. That continues to be not a safety issue at this point, but we're working through it as a warranty issue. It is still our position that what is out there requires, further evaluation. And as we've noted previously, we'll most likely be in a position come the winter season where we may need to implement some form of operational mitigation. Next slide, please. Also, as we've worked through and are close to completing the safety certification process.
Excuse me, we're not seeing your slides.
Oh, my apologies, sir. I can see it.
I can see it, Don.
Okay. Very good. Press on.
Yes, sir. As Lynn noted, we're getting very close to completing safety certification for the infrastructure under the Airports Authority deliverables, but there is a whole other round of safety certification that requires passing of no technical objection by the WMSC and engagement with the FTA. And the primary focus there will be training, for our frontline staff to operate this new infrastructure, along with some other items, primarily art and transit and the Fairgate system. We'll also be running, if you could go back one slide, yep. We'll also be running our full simulated service, where we'll actually be running through Wheelie and then running all the way through the airport out to Ashburn. So we'll be basically rehearsing the operation for a number of weeks. And then, of course, the public outreach that's all associated with the actual opening event. Then there are many conditions that need to be met per the cooperative agreement, which would ultimately lead into a resolution presented to the board prior to acceptance and noting a start of passenger service. And this slide shows directly out of the cooperative agreement what those 10 items are. So in the future, what will be presented, to the board in public will be a list of these 10 items containing the detail and data that notes the completion percentage and full completion of these items. Next slide. I just did want to touch on that there is, a misnomer out there to some degree that once operational readiness is declared, that passenger service must start 90 days after that. We just wanted to talk through what some of the, heavy lifts will be that will ultimately drive our timeline between the Declaration of Operational Readiness and Passenger Service. We are working, as the first bullet notes, to revise and finalize our schedules and our startup checklists. As I noted, phase 2 does include a rail yard, which phase 1 did not. The rail yard has, up to 350 employees that will be working in that facility. The yard, although not public facing, is an area that presents, risk to our employees. It's close. There's a lot of train movement. So we need to be very deliberate and thoughtful in how we give our frontline employees the time and room they need to properly get familiarized with this new equipment and territory. And then, of course, as we've worked through the safety certification process with the Airports Authority for the infrastructure, we'll be applying that same rigor as we work through the safety certification process that WMATA will be responsible for, which, as I noted, primarily pertains to the training of our employees. There's been a lot of good discussion, amongst, the team led by Teresa, where we'll be creating focus groups, amongst our frontline employees to ensure we're getting good feedback on the quality of the training and their comfort level in being properly familiarized with the new property. And then, of course, as folks are aware, we have a lot of other very important critical capital work underway, most notably the Platform Improvement Project on the east end of the Orange Line, which is closed. And, working through the details of how that coordinates with the opening of the new Silver Line Phase 2 is definitely an important operational consideration that will be a part of our revised schedule. And sir, that concludes our update pending your questions.
Thank you, Andy and Lynn. If anyone has any questions, please use the raise hand function. Seeing none, again, thank you for an excellent presentation. At this time, we'll turn the floor to
Don,
Ms.
one hand up. Sorry, Brian.
Hey,
just raised your hand.
Bryna. Thank you. Bryna?
Hey, thanks. Thanks for the update. Just for clarification, so do you think it will be within 90 days, or you think it will be much longer in terms of getting all those ducks in a row?
Yes, ma'am. We expect it may be slightly longer, primarily due to the yard and the complexity that adds. And then also how we're approaching the safety certification process, in a much more deliberate, and rigorous way. So that
like 120 days, 180 days, like, do you have a sense of that, or?
Yeah, ma'am. So we are revising our schedules now that we think, we'll be at ORD within the next several weeks. And I think, we'll certainly be coming back to the board, as we refine those schedules. We have already engaged, certainly, Teresa's team and the FTA and the WMSC on, making sure all the appropriate stakeholders are aligned with our thinking to make sure that what we present is both, achievable and safe.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Again, thank you both, Lynn and Andy. Seeing no other hands, we'll now move to Ms. Teresa Impastato.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To date this year, we've reviewed each of the 4 critical components of Metro's SMS, as well as detailed information on our voluntary safety reporting programs. This month, we'll turn our attention to the practical and tangible changes that our SMS is impacting throughout Metro. And this presentation will discuss how we're using our SMS to inform and align data-driven targeted safety initiatives that are designed to systematically reduce risk. In addition to tracking Metro's performance in a number of key safety domains, the safety team at Metro also performs an annual benchmarking review of Metro performance compared with 5 peer agencies of similar size, configuration, operating environments, and ridership. Using data obtained from the FTA's National Transit Database, as well as data obtained from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, Metro compares against our peer agencies in 4 main categories: collisions, derailments, employee injuries, and customer injuries. The most recent comparison year is calendar year 2021. The goal of this annual exercise is to identify general industry trends, to identify opportunities for additional benchmarking and sharing of best practice with our industry peers, to identify areas of concentration for risk reduction initiatives, and to evaluate the experiences at Metro across the industry to determine if WMATA is an outlier in any of the aforementioned areas. The first charts on the screen depict rail collisions, which include any contact between two rail transit vehicles or any collision that causes substantial damage to Metro trains and maintenance equipment. When compared to our peers, Metro had the fourth lowest overall rail collision rate at 0.3 rail collisions per million train revenue miles. Additionally, reviewing a count of rail collisions within Metro year over year, Metro experienced a decrease from 7 to 4. In calendar year 2021, 3 of the 4 collisions occurred in rail yards, with most involving maintenance equipment moving within the storage tracks, while the 4th was maintenance equipment on the main line. When compared to our peers, Metro was the 5th lowest with regard to derailments at 0.3 derailments per million train revenue miles. In calendar year 21, Metro experienced 3 derailments of maintenance equipment, such as high rail cars on the main line, and 1 derailment with a train in passenger service in October of 2021. The derailment in October of 2021 remains under investigation by the National Transportation Safety Board. The National Transit Database Rail Employee Injury Rate is a representation of WMATA employees injured requiring immediate medical transportation from the scene. When compared to our peers, Metro performance was among the lowest rates, with 0.2 injuries per million unlinked passenger trips. Of note, this injury criteria differs from the OSHA recordable injury rate, which WMATA uses for internal performance metrics and was shown in the adjacent chart. Comparing Metro with the Bureau of Labor Statistics data for rail employees, Metro's performance is nearly equivalent to the greater industry average. Also of note, in 2021, the OSHA rail system employee injury rate increased by nearly 33%, from 2.7 injuries per 100 employees in calendar year 20 to 3.6 in calendar year 21. Overall, the most common injuries involve stress claims and slips, trips, and falls. We're tracking this increase, and I'll discuss a number of initiatives designed to reduce employee injury risk. Finally, the National Transit Database Rail Customer Injury Rate was 0.9 customer injuries per million passenger trips in calendar year 21. When compared with peers, Metro was the lowest, with 0.9 injuries per million unlinked trips. The NTD customer injury rate was 0.6 customer injuries per million passenger trips in calendar year 21, compared to 2.0 in calendar year 20, which noted a 70% decrease. Nearly 93% of the customer injuries were related to slips and falls on escalators or within rail stations, which is an area of particular focus in our risk reduction efforts. As a result of the implementation of our SMS, Metro has directed resources towards a number of initiatives to improve rail safety and prevent incidents driven by data analysis and risk assessment. These initiatives are diverse and include engineered solutions, cultural and behavioral campaigns, improvements to the state of good repair, and the installation of next generation technologies to increase access to asset performance data, which will enable more informed and data-driven decision-making. These initiatives include the installation of new couplers on the 6000 series fleet, which, as all know, were suspended from service due to 2 separation incidents. As of the 3rd quarter, 82 of a total of 182 rail cars have had the new couplers installed. Testing and inspection are completed before each rail car receives approval to return to service, and we have no separation incidents on any of the current in service 6000 series fleet. Additionally, software upgrades are continuing for 2000 and 3000 series rail cars to enable the use of automated precision station stopping and stop and proceed commands in passenger service. This project is expected to mitigate station and red signal violations. Metro has advanced below ground station installation to 98% and is continuing the above ground construction, fiber installation, and portable radio distributions as part of the radio infrastructure replacement project, which upgrades radio communication systems and enhances safety by improving communications between Metro employees, the Operations Control Center, and first responders in surrounding jurisdictions throughout the system in the event of an emergency. As noted, escalators are the leading contributing factor involved with customer injuries. Metro has an aggressive program to replace 130 escalators at 32 stations over a 7-year period, beginning with the oldest and least reliable escalators. In Q3, Metro completed the replacement of 4 units at Brooklyn, Federal Center, Virginia Square, and Rhode Island Avenue. We will continue to aggressively implement this project. Safety Sprint is a targeted campaign designed to help frontline employees understand their role in recognizing, reporting, and mitigating safety risks. The most recent sprint occurred from March to May of 2022 and included 4 focal areas: recognizing safety risk, mitigating safety risk, reporting safety risk, and acting on safety risk. This sprint engaged over 1,000 non-represented employees from over 1,000 non-represented and represented employees from over 100 different teams across operations. Lastly, Metro installed the first automated inspection system to test wheel sets of the 7000 series rail cars in real time. With the first installation now complete, engineers are configuring, testing, and commissioning the system, which is a key component of our strategy, not only for safely returning the 7000 series to service, but also to enable the ability to see patterns and trends throughout the fleets and enable action to be taken before conditions manifest that have an opportunity to cause an incident. Metro's safety team also performs benchmarking and comparative analyses with regard to our bus operations. The 4 main metrics used to gauge bus safety performance are the National Transit Database pedestrian strikes, collision rate, employee injury rate, and customer injury rate. The peer comparison data uses the most recently closed out calendar year of 2021 and includes 4 peer agencies. When compared to our peers, Metro's pedestrian strike rate of 0.4 strikes per million revenue miles fell roughly in the middle. The NTD pedestrian collision metric, for example, pedestrians transported from the scene for medical care, has increased year over year. There were 8 strikes in calendar year 20, which increased to 13 in calendar year 21. I'll describe some of the efforts that we have underway to reduce the likelihood of these incidents. When compared to our peers, Metro experienced the 3rd highest collision rate with 4.3 collisions per million revenue miles. The bus collision rate had a 12% year-over-year increase with a rate of 3.3 collisions per million mile in 2021. The majority of the collisions were rated as non-preventable, which includes cases where the bus was struck in the rear or a vehicle would run a stop signal or red light and strike the bus. The metric for injuries only includes those that require immediate transport from the incident scene for medical attention in the National Transit Database. When compared to peer agencies, WMATA had the 2nd lowest injury rate for employees. When evaluating employee injuries using OSHA recordable criteria, WMATA's employee injury rate had a 43% year-over-year increase, with a rate of 8 employee injuries per 100 employees in calendar year 20, compared to 14 in calendar year 21. The 3 leading injury causes for bus employees in calendar year 21 were stress, assault, and collision related. Stress and assault incidents have increased significantly year over year. Of note, when comparing with Bureau of Labor and Statistics data, Metro bus operators have a significantly higher injury rate than the general industry for bus operators. We're focusing a number of resources to address the rise in operator injuries with specific emphasis on preventing assaults. When comparing all sources of customer injuries with our peers, Metro is the 2nd lowest, with 2.0 customer injuries per million unlinked trips. The customer injury rate had a 17% year-over-year increase. Injuries related to both preventable and non-preventable collisions saw a significant increase in injury rate. Metro's data-driven safety initiatives for our bus operations focus on the deployment of service-proven technology enhancements shown to reduce accidents and focusing on efforts to prevent employee assaults. Based upon a highly successful multi-year pilot program, expansion of the installation of collision avoidance systems is underway with procurement in process. As noted in prior board briefings, this system warns bus operators of impending collisions and provides audible and visual blind spot alerts. Based upon extensive review of accident and incident data, Metro initiated a performance behavior analysis program in 2021 to support consistency in monitoring drive cam events and to standardize management's response to these events. This included the development of a coaching manual to provide best practices for effectively coaching operators who may experience drive cam events. As part of our SMS, safety risk management processes are being implemented in bus operations this year, with Beatrice Bus Transportation's Department Safety Coordinator working to analyze data and partner with division management to conduct joint coaching sessions and suggest further corrective action to reduce incidents in high-risk areas. We've also worked with our engineering teams to standardize a number of safety improvements throughout the bus fleet, including silent alarm and protective shields installed on all buses, pedestrian strobe lights, and continuous flashing deceleration and servicing lights. We're continuing to identify fleet improvements and leveraging the latest technologies to enhance safety. The next series of Metro buses will include increased numbers of sensors and cameras and enhanced driver alert displays, as well as improvements to the air filtration systems and interior finishes to improve cleanliness. Lastly, Metro is acutely aware of the challenges that the industry is facing with regard to the increase in bus operator assaults. We're working with an array of stakeholders to address this issue. We've implemented enhanced training, including de-escalation training. We've also deployed resources from our Metro Transit Police Department to high-risk areas and routes. We recognize that combating the rise in assaults requires an integrated effort, and we're working with a number of jurisdictional authorities to improve the safety and security of our operations. The two metrics used to gauge Metro Access safety performance are the collision rate and customer injury rate. Peer comparison data using the most recently closed out calendar year of 2021 showed that Metro was the lowest agency with 1.0 major collisions per million revenue miles. The overall Metro Access collision rate had a 7% year-over-year increase, with a rate of 1.6 collisions per million miles compared to 1.5 collisions per million miles in the prior year. The majority of these collisions were the result of non-preventable actions, such as when the Metro Access vehicle was rear-ended while stopped, and is likely attributable to an increase in vehicular traffic. When comparing all sources of customer injuries with our peers, Metro was the lowest, with 0.6 customer injuries per 100,000 trips in calendar year 2021. The customer injury rate increased 60% year over year, with a rate of 1.6 customer injuries per 100,000 linked trips in calendar year 21. Injuries were primarily related to slips, trips, and falls during boarding and alighting. In preparation for the SMS implementation, Metro Access is requiring all contractors align their local safety committees with the policies and processes that are being implemented within Metro. These safety committees serve as the operating rhythm for the proactive identification, assessment, and mitigation of safety risks as part of our safety management system. Metro Access is continuing to implement the psychological safety campaign called Safety is No Accident. Messaging and information are aimed at supervisors, managers, and leaders to enable them to create and sustain a psychologically safe environment where frontline staff feel comfortable admitting concerns and mistakes, provide feedback, and share suggestions without fear of ridicule or being shut down. In response to collision incidents and the related injuries, a messaging campaign was launched aimed at operators to provide tactical safety messaging around the 3 pillars of Metro Access's customer injury prevention: safe driving, safe securement, and proper door-to-door service. As part of implementing this data-driven proactive risk management approach, observations and compliance reporting forms are being reorganized to capture and trend information and allow us to tap the data. This will continuously improve Metro Access's ability to detect any trending or emergent safety risks. Securement of scooters and wheelchairs is a critical safety function of Metro Access. With sedans being introduced to the fleet and fewer riders during the pandemic, the risk for loss of proficiency was identified through safety risk management efforts. In response, Metro Access took action to increase recertification to twice per year, once every 6 months, effectively mitigating the risk of improper securement before an incident had the opportunity to occur. This concludes the presentation of Metro's ongoing safety initiatives in bus, rail, and paratransit services, and I'm pleased to answer any questions.
Thank you, Teresa. We really appreciate this update, the ongoing actions, and certainly the progress that's been made. If anyone has any, okay, I see Dr. Lowe.
Good morning. Thanks so much for this update. I have a couple kind of different topics that I'd like to cover with questions that are somewhat tangential to your presentation. So it's okay if the answer is, I gotta look into it. So the first is about bus safety. I'm really interested to learn more about these intelligent buses. I mean, it seems like our buses are already pretty smart, but they're getting smarter. And I'd love to see some more detail on what these expanded capabilities are. So if we could follow up on that at some point, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Sure.
But one thing I didn't see covered in the presentation, and that's okay because this is kind of high level, is that I'm aware that there's a current safety issue that's impacting a couple of the S lines in DC, the S2 and S9. And that the way that we're currently dealing with that safety issue is to make a small route change to the path that the S2 and the S9 travel. That's, first off, I think it's great that we identified a safety issue and did something to mitigate it. Do we have a timeline on what it's going to take to resolve that safety issue?
I don't know the time to resolution offhand, but I will absolutely follow up.
Thank you for that. And making network changes also brings to mind the bus network redesign. How is safety going to be incorporated into the bus network redesign? It seems like, you know, conceptually it should be there.
Yes, we've been working actively with the bus planning teams, as well as all of the maintenance teams and our partners throughout operations and strategy and project management. So we've been reviewing the plans that are in place, and we've been also supporting by providing data analytics with regard to any safety concerns or issues, as well as trending any kind of high risk areas to identify opportunities to partner with jurisdictions to perhaps make configuration changes or other engineered or enforcement changes to areas that have been noted to be high problem or high incident areas.
Phenomenal. That's fantastic. What is the status of the bus network redesign? I'm sorry, this just occurred to me. Has that procurement concluded?
I'm sorry, my computer cut out. Can you please repeat the question?
I just realized I don't know the status of the bus network redesign. Has the procurement for that concluded?
I do not know. I'll have to follow up with you.
This is not really related to this presentation. I don't know why you would know the answer to that, but if someone could look into that and get back to me, that'd be great. Oh, or if someone else knows the answer. Okay, and then about bus driver assaults. Obviously, in the last quarterly performance report, we talked about how this number is headed in the wrong direction, and this is a super serious issue. Thanks for mentioning it in the briefing today, but what's really new in what we're doing right now? I feel like I've heard the de-escalation training thing before. You also mentioned targeted deployments of MTPD. Is that new or is that increased? When will we know how that's going?
So with regard to the de-escalation training, we've made some pretty substantive changes and enhancements to the training. We've expanded it. It takes place over a longer amount of time. We've included a little more practical exercising. So it's more on the route of continuous improvement with the de-escalation training. We're also looking at the bipartisan infrastructure legislation and the impact to requirements for de-escalation training. So we'll probably significantly expand and continue to revise that process. With regard to the deployment of Metro Transit Police resources, we've taken a multifaceted approach. We've always had resources available to respond to incidents, and we've been proactive in deploying resources when we see an uptick in concerning issues throughout the system. We're also increasing our outreach. MTPD has a very active homeless and unhoused outreach program that's newer, as well as we've created a civilian division within the police department that is going to work to help individuals get access to community resources and social services should they need. That's also new.
Those, thank you. That was very responsive to my question, but I would like to learn even more about this civilian division that you mentioned, what their scope of work is, and what kind of resources they have in order to get their work done. I'd like to learn a lot more about that. And I'd like to get feedback on how the improved de-escalation training is going. It sounds like you've already got baked in feedback from drivers.
We do.
About the training. Wonderful. But if that could make it up to us, it would be great to just keep hearing about what's new, how's it going, and what the feedback from drivers is, and also, of course, what the results are. And we'll see that in the next in upcoming quarterly performance reports as well. But that is really interesting about the civilian division, and I would love to learn more.
Absolutely. I'll reach out to
Thank
the chief and we'll coordinate a response.
Great. Understand this takes time. Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tracy. Mr. Smedberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Impastato, thanks for this report. I mean, it really highlights areas where the team, you and your team and the employees have really made significant strides, and the areas obviously that we still need to work on. But how is this information communicated to the employees and the various teams, and how do you use it to instruct or implement new programs and everything? Could you go a little bit more into detail on that? Our employee, I guess my simple question is, are employees receiving this same kind of information?
Yes, sir, they are. So through the implementation of our SMS, our safety risk coordinators have access to all of the benchmarking data. And we once per month meet with all of the safety risk coordinators and review current trends and issues and spend quite amount of time discussing the annual benchmarking exercise. Those safety risk coordinators oversee and serve as the custodian for a number of safety committees within their division and share and disseminate that information throughout the safety committees. Additionally, we share the benchmarking data with the Executive Safety Committee and participate in a number of the chief operating officers' staff meetings to review performance, data, and results. We do offer town hall listening sessions for employees to give us feedback and ideas, targeting what we've noted in terms of trends. We've gotten some really great feedback from employees, specifically on some of the engineered improvements that we've made to our bus fleet, as well as some of the changes that we've made to our station configurations to enhance safety. Escalator safety campaigns have been shared throughout Metro to our employees, and we've gotten a lot of really great feedback from our station manager and frontline population with regard to opportunities for improvement or success stories.
That's great. And what about, is this information shared with the EMT and the general manager and everything? Are they also aware of these statistics?
Yes, sir.
This was something that came up initially with the 7000s, communication or or lack of communication, I guess, in some ways, with certain levels of employees that, this information may not have been going higher than, their certain level of their managers. So information like this is also getting to the top of the organization as well.
Yes, sir. It's reviewed on a monthly basis in our Executive Safety Council. Each mode has dedicated time in the agenda to discuss their current performance, as well as looking longitudinally year over year. And the leader of each group, so the leader of bus, rail, and paratransit services, will talk about the efforts that they have underway in terms of targeted risk reduction initiatives. And they'll identify to the executive team any resources that they need or any challenges that they're facing with regard to implementing those efforts.
That's great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dr. Helfer.
Thanks. Thanks for all this information. I think it was the last month at the meeting, you provided a really great briefing on mental health. I think it might have been mental health awareness. And we talked a little bit about ensuring that employees had the right supports. Do you have any sense of, employees, either being offered additional supports or the type of access that they're taking advantage of in terms of services, and what kind of feedback you're getting in that arena? Thanks.
So I'll have to get back to you on the hard data statistics, but I can provide an anecdotal account at this point. So I know anecdotally we have endeavored to increase awareness at the management level with regard to access to services. When we have a critical incident occur that has the potential to be traumatic for an employee, the management team has increased proactively connecting those employees with our employee assistance program to receive counseling and psychological intervention services. Not sure about the actual order of magnitude of any increase in uptake, but I do know that there is absolutely an increase. We've increased communications throughout Metro. The health and wellness team, led by our Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Amy S.B. Smith, has been working tirelessly to communicate throughout the organization the availability of the resources, as well as to increase the visibility and destigmatize the use of the services.
Thanks. And then I just had one other question. I don't know if it's the data is broken down this way. On Metro Access, do you have a sense of, you said trips, falls, do you have a sense of how much of that's taking place, like in the vehicle, on the lift, on the stairs, that breakdown?
The majority of the injuries are boarding and alighting. So,
but on the lift or on the stairs?
Using the lift if the lift is being used. We have deployed the use of occupational therapists to work to identify specific points in the process where there have been opportunities for injury, and we've made some changes to process there.
Thanks. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Bryna. Seeing no more hands, thank you again, Teresa, for an excellent update. With no further business before the committee, we will stand adjourned. I'll turn the floor back over to Mr. Smedberg, who has a request for the board to meet in executive session.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In accordance with the bylaws, I, Paul Smedberg, request that the Board of Directors convene an executive session to discuss the following matters pursuant to Article 2, Paragraph 9, subsections A, budgetary matters that may affect legal positions, WMATA contracts, or sensitive relationships with local jurisdictions or the federal government, and B, litigation, investigations, or other legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice or consultation with counsel and staff members. D, contractual or other matters involving confidentiality or proprietary concerns and the investment of public funds where discussion in public would adversely affect the financial interest of WMATA. And F, safety and security matters where premature release would compromise public safety. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Deputy Mayor Babers. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much.